everyone, my name is Amber. Welcome back to my channel, Amber Reads Romance. Today I'm going to be doing my mid-month wrap-up for April. Hopefully this one will be a little quicker. I'm trying to do these faster each time, but I do tend to ramble, so I apologize in advance because this may be longer still. But hopefully I'll be able to breeze through some of these books and not go as in-depth as I usually do. So I think I read 11 books. It was either 11 or 12. Sorry, I can't remember now. For the first half of April. This month so far has been pretty slow going for me. It's not too bad considering, but like a couple weeks ago, my son got in an accident, flipped his car, and it was just super stressful. Had to go to a dealership, get a new car. The car's totaled. All that going on in my life. So the book reading was a little tough during that week. But I'm good with where I'm at. So let's just go ahead and dive right into the books that I've read so far for April. The first book that I read was an ARC. I've actually never read this author before, and that is Highland Beast. And this is by Heather McCollum. I really liked this book a lot. I had never read her. It's a Scottish romance. And I found it really interesting. It's between Baz and Shanna. I'm not sure if I'm saying that right, if it's Baz or Baz, but it's B-A-S. And it actually means death in Gaelic. So his father actually named him Death. And he was raised to be Death. His father raised his kids to be like the Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse. So he was Death. He became an executioner. And his dad trained him at a super young age, like at 5. And actually wanted to kill animals, which he refused to do. Because he is like this cinnamon roll inside, but everybody's scared of him. And he lives off on his own, like in his own little, cabin kind of thing with all these wonderful animals that he loves so much. And that just really endeared me to him. He was just such a sweet hero. And he's forced to be this executioner, and he feels like everyone's afraid of him, and it's just really sad. So this is I think book 4. I'm sorry if I'm wrong. In this series, so like it's the other brothers that were previously in the book, and then the book after this I think is going to be his sister. So I'm interested in it. I would love to go back and read the brothers' books. But basically the setup in this is Shanna is basically kind of on the run with her sister's baby. Her sister just gave birth, and her husband's abusive, and found out that she basically had an affair on him and that the baby isn't his. And so she's fearful for the baby's life. So she has her sister, Shanna, go take the baby and leave. So she kind of flees across this area and ends up getting chased down by wolves. Baz actually has his own wolf that's like his pet. And I really love that. And he leads him out there. And so they save her where she had put the baby up in like a tree and was trying to save them. So he rescues her and ends up taking care of her over the night at his house. And they share this really sweet kiss, which was his first kiss because nobody wants anything to do with him because he's Death. And they basically, she just really likes him, but she has to go back for her sister. So she kind of leaves the baby with him, knowing he'll be safe. And she goes back after her sister. So he's confused when she's gone the next day, takes the baby home to his family, and he gets called in for an execution, and lo and behold, it's Shanna. So she's being accused of her sister's murder and the murder of the baby. So he's forced in this situation. He's going to be the executioner, but of course he's not going to do it. And it's the first time he's never done it, and he basically saves her. So this had a lot of action in it. It was a very slow build between them. I really liked their romance. He was like a virgin hero. He was very cinnamon roll. He had a squirrel, cows that he took care of, his horses, his wolf, and it was really, really sweet. So I really enjoyed this. I ended up giving it 5 stars, and it was just a very sweet, like low angst romance, and I was in the perfect mood for it. So the next book I read, I went back into Sam Mariano, who's one of my favorite authors, her backlist, and I read Stitches, which is a polyamorous romance, and it's between a married couple and then their like best friend. And it didn't really work for me. I hate to give Sam Mariano lower ratings, but this honestly just didn't hit the mark for me. I didn't care about any of these characters. I kind of disliked them. And I mean, and it's honestly like a lower key, like not as dark romance, like not really dark at all, like compared to what Sam Mariano's usually does. So it's not like a dark romance at all, really. It's just hard for me. I'm very picky with polyamorous relationships. I want to feel the connection between all of them. And actually, I'm sorry, this isn't totally poly because the husband and the best friend don't get involved. It's basically like a menage. So I'm sorry, I should preface that by saying this is an MFM. So the men don't do any sword crossing. There's nothing going on there. And that's where it kind of falls flat for me because I would have liked there to be some connection there. But also, this is between Seb. He's married to Moira. They've been married forever. Seb is a very like Sam Mariano character because he's very ruthless, doesn't really think about consequences. He'll do whatever it takes to keep him and Moira safe and do what he wants. So he's very ruthless, cutthroat. So that is a definite Sam Mariano hero. And then Moira is very like submissive. Honestly, she was too submissive for me. Like, I'm okay with a little submission in the bedroom, but not in all aspects of like their daily life. Like, she literally didn't have a job. She was okay being the at-home wife, preparing food and always being ready with food and sex and just being at his beck and call. And she was perfectly happy with that, which is fine. I'm not shaming anybody that doesn't want to work or whatever, but she had like no ambitions, nothing. It was like her whole life revolved around Seb, and I just didn't like it. It didn't do it for me. And then you have their best friend Griff, who was married. He's been basically in love with Moira this whole time, and he kind of felt like their third wheel. So he married this like really bitchy, not great person, just so he could have somebody and have a marriage and not be obsessed with his best friend's wife. So he marries her. She's cheated on pretty much multiple times. Seb gets her on camera cheating at their club, and he tells him, and Griff's upset and doesn't want to just be part of their life anymore. So he basically tells him, I'm leaving. And these guys have been like brothers. They grew up in the system together. And so Seb takes that very harshly as like, you're abandoning me. Sorry, you guys might hear my son screaming in the background. He's playing games and he's whatever. Anyways, so Seb gets really upset because he feels like that's abandoning him. And so he gets really frustrated. Then realizes Griff is basically in love with his wife. So he just tells Moira, like, you're going to go upstairs, get naked, and I'm going to send Griff up. Basically gives her no choice, just tells her this is what's going to happen. And that's where I had the issues, because it was like, it felt like Moira just did it because Seb demanded she do it. And I didn't feel her and Griff's connection. She just does whatever Seb wants, and I don't like that. Then there was this whole like third act thing with like this almost mafia type of plot, and like it just got a little crazy for me, and I just didn't care. Like, I was skimming through a lot of the sex scenes, so that's when you know it ain't working. So I gave that 3 stars. Then I continued with us reading Stacy Reid. I really fell in love with her a while ago, and I wanted to read the second book after My Darling Duke, which I loved My Darling Duke. So I read my Rick and Marquis, and this is between Nicholas and Marianne. It's like a revenge plot. I'm not going to go too deep into it. I did not enjoy this book. I didn't really care about their connection. It's like, basically Nicholas is after these people that he's been having this long running plot against because they raped, a group of like privileged men raped this young girl that he loved when he was younger. And he kind of couldn't be with her because she wasn't of his class, and he obviously couldn't marry her. But he feels really guilty about what happened. She like ends up getting raped and assaulted by these guys and then kills herself. So he's had this long running to try and find out each one of these guys and ruin their lives. And so that's what he's about. He kind of plays up their rakish kind of persona so that he can go after these guys and they wouldn't think anything of him. And he happens to kind of have a run-in with Marianne. She's part of those little wallflowers that basically are trying to like get men themselves by, you know, doing whatever they need to do. And so she doesn't want to be married to this older man that her family is going to have her be engaged to. It hasn't been announced yet, but she does not want to marry him. And you find out he's kind of a slime ball. And so there was a news story about this Nicholas sneaking out of a window, and she claims it was hers and at a party. And so it spreads the rumors. So she's hoping that that would stop her engagement. It doesn't, but that starts her and Nicholas having these interactions together. And there was some sexy stuff, but I just didn't feel their connection. I didn't really care about it. It was more about the revenge plot and that whole thing than like their romance. And honestly, like, I've listened to this on audiobook. It's on Anyplay, and I hated the narrator. That might be part of the reason I didn't enjoy this book. So no, nothing against Stacy Reid. I still am going to continue her books because she is an amazing author. This narrator was so breathy, and each word had to be elongated and overpronounced and breathy, and it drove me freaking crazy. Okay, crazy. So I don't think I can ever listen to another book with that. She's the narrator. So sorry, but so I gave this 3 stars. Then I continued with the Blame It on the Alcohol. Jess from Peace Loves Books and Tori at A Novel in Life. They are doing that. They did that read along for that series. And this month I ended it with the Blame It on the Vodka. This is by Fiona Cole. And I did really enjoy this book, but I loved the second book best, which was the Stepbrother Rockstar one. This is a Friends to Lovers, which if you've seen my videos before, you're going to know it's hard for me, Friends to Lovers. It just is. But this is between Austin and Ray, or Raylan. She goes by Ray with them. And it's basically a drunken Vegas wedding. They're going to the couple from the previous books, wedding in Vegas. They get really drunk and they wake up where they got married. Now, this leads to issues because Ray is basically the chick that never wanted a boyfriend, never wanted to be with anybody. She did have a boyfriend, and trigger warnings, there is physical abuse. He doesn't get totally over the top physical, but there are those red flags that are coming up where the way he grabs her and treats her. So it is full on abuse, but she's basically with him because she was kind of trying to be in a relationship, and then it helped her dad's campaign. So she just has kind of stayed with him. Before she goes on this trip, they have an altercation. She breaks up with him. Now she wakes up married, and Austin is like a wonderful guy. They've been friends since they were in college. She went up to him and basically said, "You want to fuck?" And he was like, "No." So he's like the only guy that's ever turned her down, and they become really close friends. He turned her down because the moment he saw her, he wanted more. And he knew that she was just going to be going after like a one night, a quick fling. And he didn't want that. So they became really close friends. It's always annoying to me when like everyone else can see the guys pining you for years and she doesn't even get that. But anyways, the problem is that Ray does not want to be married. She never wants to be married. She has issues with that for personal reasons, which you find out later, which are understandable, but to the extent that she goes, like, it just is kind of ridiculous to me. I was very frustrated with her in this book. And then Austin takes marriage really seriously. His dad was like a serial, he would like get married after marriage. So he didn't want to do that. His brother's kind of a fuck up in the same way. So marriage means something to him. So like they end up basically kind of having like a fake marriage. She needs to go like, cause her dad's in a campaign, and he said this will look bad for like these religious people that he's trying to get help from. So he has her and him come to like, I think the Hamptons, and for like a weekend, and then they go to his Austin's grandparents because they're, you know, big on marriage and everything. And so he wants to show them happy. So I enjoyed this, but I did think the third act breakup was stupid. I think Ray's decisions were stupid. I think it was really like summed up, like it was way too fast to resolve that. There was not enough groveling. I think Ray should have groveled. But those are just a few little hangups. Overall, I enjoyed the book. It was like a 4-star. So then I'm continuing the Ice Planet Barbarian series. Sorry, there's a bug. I'm on book 9. So this was Barbarian's Heart. And it is between Pashov and Stacy. And I really loved this one. It was a lot more emotional than I was expecting. In the previous book, there's kind of like this earthquake, this life-changing thing that happens on the planet. And their old home gets like caved in. So, and Pashov happened to be in a further area. He gets caved in that, and he gets a brain injury where when he wakes up, he almost died. He wakes up, he does not remember Stacy. They had resonated from the get-go. So like they resonated, fell in love. They have a son together. And now he doesn't remember her. He doesn't remember like the last couple years. So she's like devastated because it's like her Pashov isn't really there. Their inside jokes, their like whole connection isn't there. And so it's this, they also have to travel to find to this new place to live because they need shelter. And it's a newer location that was discovered in the last book. And so the whole tribe is basically traveling, and then they kind of stay back at like a cave for a little bit. And it's like them slowly learning each other again, coming to terms with like this new situation. And I mean, they love each other still, but it's that awkward thing. So I thought it was really beautiful. You can get kind of frustrated with Stacy because she was taking things too personally when really Pashov's trying so hard to get back to where they were and show her he loves her and all that kind of stuff. So I really enjoyed it. I gave this one 4 stars. It's basically kind of an amnesia, memory loss, marriage in trouble type of book, and I absolutely loved it. Then I read Predator by Runyx. I've actually never read anything by her, so I was interested to see, and I've seen people talk about this, and I kind of wanted to get a little mafia romance in. And this is between Tristan and Marana, and it's like basically an enemies to lovers, rival families. They're like kind of in rival mafia families. Marana is basically it's described as a genius. She wrote this code as like kind of like a dare with her ex-boyfriend. And this is my problem. The book doesn't even explain about like what this code could do. It's just explained as it would like create havoc and ruin both their families or one of their families. I don't know. But somebody basically gets these codes that she had created. Her boyfriend sold them. He thought he was selling them to Tristan, but really somebody's like setting Tristan up. I don't know. And so she goes to like kill Tristan, who's like one of the most ruthless like in the mafia. He's non-blood related, but like he's like the only non-blood in that mafia, but they like took him in as like their own and trained him and all that kind of stuff. He's referred to as the Predator. And she tries to kill him. Obviously, she isn't going to be able to do that. And he kind of lets her go. But then they keep kind of having these run-ins. And he's basically hates her. She doesn't know why he hates her. She's supposed to help him and his Dante, who's like the son of the head of his mafia, find these codes. And so that, you know, Tristan's not being blamed for anything and that it won't lead to whatever would happen. So this one just didn't really work for me. I didn't really feel romance at all. It was enemies to lovers with like no dialogue, no connection, no nothing. It's just a bunch of staring. Like he stares at her. She stares at him. He's constantly staring at her. He doesn't talk. You know, he barely says anything and he stares. And then it's just the repetitiveness. It's constantly in her perspective. There's no dual POVs. And she just repeats the same things, these monologues over and over. Runyx did say in the beginning that that's her genius mind, and so she's repetitive and thinks the same things. But it was too much. I was bored. I didn't want to hear another monologue about how blue his eyes are, about the codes, but not explain to me what these codes are, about, you know, how he has the voice of whiskey and sin, and basically you don't really have any answers. You get to the end, you find out why he hates her, you find out some of the past, but nothing's resolved. It's basically another book that you have to read on this couple, and I'm going to read it because I want resolution and just go further in the series to see if it gets better. But honestly, like, it wasn't it did not feel like a romance at all. So I gave this 3 stars, and we'll see how the next book is. So then I read A Secret for a Secret. This is the third book in the All In series by Helena Hunting, and I really love this book. I think it was my favorite in the series. This is between Kingston and Queenie, and Kingston is like that good guy. He's always been the straight and narrow. He's always does the right thing, and Queenie's kind of a little chaotic and wild and, you know, makes crazy decisions. And she kind of has a run-in with Kingston. He found out some crazy stuff about his family, like a big bomb drop, and so he's actually out drinking, which he normally never does. He runs into Queenie, and they kind of share secrets about like what the issues are. She's actually kind of like looking for, you know, her purpose and what she should be doing. So they end up having a one-night stand. She doesn't think it could go anywhere, you know, and so she doesn't leave him her number or anything. She just leaves. And then she is actually the general manager's daughter, and she's going to start working for him as his like assistant. And so her dad doesn't want her getting involved with any of the hockey players. And of course, Kingston's a hockey player on the team. And when she shows up to work, he's there, and she really wants to do right by her dad and really put her all into this job because she feels like she's kind of aimless right now. So they decide to kind of be friends, and then that builds, and obviously they can't stay away from each other. And Helena Hunting always does such a great job with sexual chemistry and that connection. And I just really loved it because Kingston like really was supportive of her and like pushed her to go after what she really wants. And I loved it. There was also a character that I read, I think it was Little Lies. I can't remember if that's what it's called, but it's a book I read way before I ever read the series. And it's between like this series characters like kids, and this little girl was in it. It's Violet and Alex's daughter, and she was kind of shy and withdrawn, and she was a big part of this in this book. And so I really like seeing her again. I would be interested to reread that book because I really did love it now that I've seen like the parents and everything. But I gave this one 5 stars. Definitely recommend. This is also available on Read and Listen for free on Amazon. As long as you have Kindle Unlimited, you can get that, listen to Audible for free. And it was a really good audiobook. So then I continued the Midnight in Scotland series. I read The Taming of a Highlander, and I loved this book. I loved it way more than the first book. I just loved it. I love a damaged, scarred hero. This is between Broderick and Cate. Broderick is the brother of the heroine from the first book, and he was actually wrongly accused of a crime and sent to prison, and he was really brutalized in prison. It was this big conspiracy of this guy to set him up. And when you see what he kind of went through, he's very scarred. He's got an eye patch because he's got like no eye on one of his eyes. He's very scarred. He's this big, huge dude. And Cate is the sister of the hero from the first book, and she's staying with them, the hero and heroine. And she's like this, wants to be a screenwriter. She wants to write a play, and she's using Scotland as like her, you know, muse. And so she's kind of a flighty, quirky heroine, but she really grew on me. And she happens to be out wandering around Scotland and runs into him as he's like beating the guy that was responsible for his imprisonment, like to death. And she kind of interrupts it, gets really scared, and runs off. That guy had actually was going to be put, you know, in prison for his crimes, but he got him. So the people are looking for him, and they think like he could have killed him or whatever. So, and she could be called to like kind of testify or whatever, and she doesn't want to be any cause for him going back to prison. And so they're trying to figure out what a way where this guy that keeps like, this investigator keeps hounding her of how she can like not say anything. So she kind of comes up with it on her own, is like, hey, like, how about I become his wife? And they're all saying no, no, no. But she's like, no, I'll do it. Like, I can become his wife. This could be kind of a name only. We can help each other. That way I'm not stuck in a marriage, and I can do what I want to do. I can stay in Scotland. So they get married. She's very aggressive. Like, I liked it where she kind of misunderstood about when he brought up wifely duties, and she kind of just shows up in his room like naked to do those things. And they just had such insane chemistry. She was scared of him at first, but after that she was very into him, and their sex was off the charts. And I just love the scarred, damaged hero willing to do anything. There's a good, plot going on with that guy that set him up. And I really love this book. So I gave this one 5 stars. It's a great marriage of convenience, damaged, scarred hero. So then I read our buddy read that I was doing with Bestie Book Reviews and Bookmarked by Jen. And hopefully by the time I post this, the live show already happened. So if you want more detailed thoughts, check that out on Bestie Book Reviews channel. I'll try and put something on my channel too. But I'll just give you a brief overview of this book, which was Right Man, Right Time by Meghan Quinn. This is not my usual romance. I don't read a lot of rom-coms, but I wanted to give it a shot. So this is the first time I've read Meghan Quinn, and I didn't really like this book. And you'll get more in-depth thoughts there, but basically this is between Silas and Ollie. Silas is a pro hockey player. He is older than her. They kind of have a run-in at a bar, and she has a situation going on where her coworker hates her, and they're out having drinks, and then she finds out her coworker is dating her ex-boyfriend, and so she pretends like she's dating somebody and goes up to a random guy and kisses him to show them that she's actually dating somebody. That's Silas, and he's like 31, she's like 21, so it's age gap, hockey. And then they decide to fake date because he basically says, you owe me. He has his ex-girlfriend working for the hockey organization, and he doesn't want anything to do with her. They had a really bad breakup, and so he wants this fake dating situation. Now, some of this was good, but I didn't like Ollie. She was very immature. Like, the banter was stupid. The way she talked, it just really played up the age gap in a bad way. So I didn't really enjoy this. It was way longer than it needed to be. But if you want more thoughts, check that out. I basically gave this 3.5 stars. Then I wanted a quick palette cleanser. I watched Rachel Reads and Sings do this really cool video about Cinnadoms. And I love that because I always think I love cinnamon roll heroes, but I also love the alpha. So I love that combination of the Dom and the cinnamon roll hero. So I really love that video. You guys should check it out. But basically this was one of the books she mentioned. It's a quick novella. It's Worship by Jack Harbon. And it is Arden and Spencer. Arden grew up he's the nerdy, quiet guy. And he always had a crush on Spencer. But obviously he never made a move in high school. And now they're at the high school reunion. She's had this big breakup a couple years ago from her high school boyfriend that she was with for years. Basically gets in an altercation with her best friend that's now with that ex-boyfriend. And so she ends up getting pushed into... Be quiet, Anna. Sorry, my cat. She gets pushed into food and stuff, and Arden helps her. They end up going to the showers to clean off, and then the sexiness ensues. And Arden is that really smart, quiet guy, but he's definitely dominant in the bedroom, and they have some good sexy times. It was cute. It wasn't this amazing read or anything, but it was a nice little break from what I just read. So I gave this one 4 stars. And then the last book I read, I have to gush about. I feel really bad because a lot of these books weren't great. I haven't had a great month so far. It's been pretty tough. So I finally read Mercy by Sara Cate, and this is the 4th book in the Salacious Players Club. I was kind of iffy on if I would like this because I love Praise the most. I love Praise so much. I love Emerson, and his son is a little shit. And so I thought, this is the son's book. Am I even going to enjoy this? And I absolutely did. This is basically Beau's redemption story and him finding out more about himself. It's really a self-exploration kind of both Maggie and Beau. So anyways, Beau was the son of Emerson from Praise. And obviously things didn't go really well for him. He had cheated on his girlfriend, and she ended up breaking up with him, and she's with his dad now. So that was really hard on him. He's pretty bitter about that. But I mean, he did cheat on her. He was like a horrible boyfriend. So this book picks up later, and he is kind of struggling. He doesn't have a purpose. He didn't go to school. He doesn't have a good job. He keeps like losing the jobs that he's getting. And so he's pretty flightless and doesn't know what he wants to do. He ends up he was very negative about his dad's club and was hateful about it and was, very narrow-minded about it. And his friends were actually talking about the app and how one of them used it. And so he basically decides, I'm going to take this quiz and show that it's BS. Like, I'm vanilla sex, and what are you going to tell me that I'm into? And then also Maggie, who happens to be his dad's best friend and coworker, they run the Salacious Players Club together. She's very, she grew up in a very strict and religious kind of household where she was drilled that sex was like shameful and you should only have sex with your husband and all this kind of stuff. So she kind of has that ingrained in her. So she doesn't really do as much with the club as the other people do. She ends up taking the quiz because the other girls from the other books push her to do it while they're drinking. And she gets the Dom Brat Tamer. And then Beau gets submissive, and he's a brat. And he definitely is a brat. So they end up getting matched, and they kind of talk online for a little bit. Then they decide to actually meet up at the club. It's a masquerade night, so they wouldn't see each other's faces. And she ends up they go to a room, which was like this black room. And they kind of mess around in there together. He kind of goes down on her. And then he is talking, and she had saw him at a party earlier in the night, and he said the same thing. And she was like, oh my God. And she turns the lights on, and she sees it's Beau. So she kind of freaks out. But Beau really wants it. He's really into this whole dynamic, and he wants to explore it. And so I really love this book so much because he's going to pretend to work at her house, and they're going to be Dom sub. But what was amazing is all the research they did. They really looked into things because Maggie was new to this. She didn't know what she was doing. And I loved it because they did a lot of research and had a lot of good communication. And I loved that. Even when what was really sad was Beau wants to be punished. He has a lot of self-hatred. And so this book went a lot of deeper into Beau's issues. And I found that so fascinating. And I really loved it. Where your heart kind of grew for Beau. And he wants to be punished. He wants to feel the pain because he hates himself and the decisions he's made. And she doesn't want to hurt him totally or do this unsafely. So she actually goes to their Dom person at the club and gets it done to her and learns what she needs to do. I just love that. There's so much more to this. It's beautiful. I mean, they were basically a secret relationship, but they're really falling for each other. And they just open up, and she's able to kind of control Beau's behavior and punish him and get him to realize you're being a little shit, because he is a little brat. And the one thing I wished was we had more in depth into his dad's resolution and rebuild of their relationship. But I did think they did a good job with what this was. I loved this book so much. I couldn't put it down. I read it in one day. I loved it. I don't know if I love it more than Praise, because Praise is special to me because it opened up my eyes that I love Praise and I love Emerson. But I really loved Beau and Maggie and their dynamic and just the way they were together. And I loved Beau exploring his issues and trying to be a better man for her. So I just love this book, and I debated on going back and forth on this, but I think I gotta say it's a 6-star because it made me think about it. I was thinking about them. I couldn't put it down. This is the first book I read where it's a female Dom, and it's age gap where the woman's older, he's younger. I really liked the female Dom, and I was kind of surprised by that, but I really did, and I loved this book. I couldn't recommend it enough. I'm irritated it took me this long to get to it, but I absolutely loved it. So those are the books that I read for April so far. Let me know your thoughts on any of those books. And just remember to try and check out that video for that buddy read we did. Please, thank you so much for, watching this video. If you can remember to like and subscribe, I really appreciate it. And I will see you on the next one.